On today's episode of the Locked On Knicks podcast, does Malik Beasley make sense for the New York Knicks? And we say goodbye to Alex Wolfe one last time.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a credentialed media member that's been covering the New York Knicks for nearly a decade and the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. So be sure to check out my work over there. And I wanted to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. This is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team now that we're back into full-time form. 5 whole days a week, so be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. On today's show, I mentioned it, I think 2 episodes ago on Thursday, but I wanted to take a little bit of time to discuss the possibility of Malik Beasley being a New York Knick, even though it's something of a long shot and the story broke last Saturday. We didn't ultimately have an opportunity to discuss it. And because I'm going to be on vacation in Hawaii next week and not going to have an opportunity to extrapolate on any breaking news if he were to sign with the New York Knicks, I wanted to get my thoughts on the record. And then I mentioned at the end of last show, but me and Alex, when we recorded the final two-parter, it was supposed to just be a two-parter, but it ended up going an hour and a half. And because we're both big saps, we took about 20 minutes to further talk about some of our history on the podcast and what we both meant to each other doing the show for nearly 7 years. Hopefully everyone's interested in that. I think certainly some of our longtime listeners will be interested in that. So that'll be the last 2 segments. First segment right at the top will be all Knicks stuff centering around Malik Beasley. So without further ado, let's get into it right now. All right. We heard the reports over the weekend from Jake Fisher that Malik Beasley had his name cleared and that he had the interest of a number of NBA teams. We heard from Jake and we heard from Ian Begley that the Knicks were going to be one of those teams. As of now, teams are not at a point where they can formally offer him a contract. His league office, this is directly from Jake Fisher, is expected to conduct its own review before any deal can advance. The quote from Fisher, it's believed that none of the conversations to this point have advanced to the deal-making stage, with the league itself also expected to conduct its own investigation of Beasley. So all of this is a little bit on hold. I would expect before the start of the regular season, we get some kind of clarity on all this, but it's going to be interesting to follow because there's also not a guarantee that the league office comes down with a ruling. Something as complicated as a gambling investigation can obviously take a whole lot of time. But what is the elevator pitch on Malik Beasley as a basketball player? Well, some of you may know him, some of you may hate him from that Pistons series, but he was one of the 5 best shooters in basketball last season. He was second and 6th man of the year. He's arguably Detroit's. I don't think there's actually really a big argument about it. They're probably pretty clearly their second best offensive player. 16 points per game, just over 2.5 rebounds, just over 1.5 assists, 43% from the field, 41.5% from 3, 68% from the foul line. The big thing, even maybe or at least as valuable as his efficiency from 3, was his volume from 3. He took 9 threes a game. In NBA history, the players to take at least 9 threes per game and shoot over 41% over the course of a full season. Steph Curry has done it on 6 different occasions. Klay Thompson did it in 2022-23. And Malik Beasley shot 41.5% from 3 on 9 threes this year, as I just mentioned. So he is one of 3 guys to ever do that. He put together one of the all-time great three-point shooting seasons in NBA history. Would have finished first in made threes last year, if not for the fact that Anthony Edwards insisted that he play, I think, 30-plus minutes in a blowout last game of the regular season so he could snipe him of that record. Beasley was extraordinary as a catch-and-shoot guy and just completely revolutionized Cade Cunningham's life, and I think almost as much as anyone, including Cade and JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon putting the roster around them. Malik was responsible for Cade having that breakout in his 3rd full season in the NBA. He made 248 catch-and-shoot three-pointers last year. That was the most by any player in a season since player tracking began in 2013-14, according to Genius IQ. He doesn't bring a whole lot else to the table. He is a bad rebounder. He is a very poor finisher generally. He's not terrible defensively, and I think in the past he had the reputation of being terrible defensively. I have not watched enough of him in his career to confirm that, other than my general impression is that he's not very good on that end of the floor. The stats from B-Ball Index suggested, again, he was below average, but not truly awful, maybe a step above Jalen Brunson or I don't even want to say Karl Anthony Towns, because Towns is such a good rebounder, and that's kind of a definitive strength on that end. He's also a pretty decent screen navigator, which is obviously a very big deal, because in any world where he is in lineups without Jalen Brunson, he is probably going to be the one put into the action, put into the blender, and has to hold up. And he did a good enough job of doing that last year in Detroit. Obviously, the Pistons down the stretch last season, final like 50-plus games, they had a top 5 defense, and Malik Beasley was playing a ton of minutes. So it's not like you can't defend with him. I think there would be concerns about defending with him if you started him, Brunson, and Cat together, which we are going to get into. But there are a bunch of teams that are interested. The Pistons, I think, have to be the favorite to bring him back. I was going to save this for the end, but we'll just get out of the way now. The reason this remains a real long shot for the Knicks is they can only offer him the veteran minimum, right? Which I think I worked out over the weekend. I'm trying to find it in my notes right now. I think it was about like 3.3 million. The Detroit Pistons can offer him 7.2 million, which is obviously double that. And then there are a whole bunch of teams remaining to see if they definitively have interest, but that Shams Charania reported have interest that can offer more than the 7.2 million, including the Chicago Bulls, Indiana Pacers, New Orleans Pelicans, Sacramento Kings, and Washington Wizards. The Brooklyn Nets have cap space and can offer up to or over, 20 million dollars. Again, I don't really know why the Nets would want to do that, but if they wanted to throw a wrench in things, they certainly could go about that. I think it's overwhelmingly likely he ends up back in Detroit. Great fit there. Just had a career year. Great chemistry with Cade. We saw JB Bickerstaff do a really nice job drawing up sets for him, including one that probably should have been a great look, a wide open game winner in Game 6. Fortunately for Knicks fans, he fumbled the ball, and we never knew what would have happened on that shot. If his ultimate goal is a championship, New York is pretty clearly the best option for him out of teams that have expressed interest, maybe along with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Again, there's been a whole lot of reporting about this. He, I believe, was kicked out of his apartment in Detroit for like foregoing rent for a couple months, paying rent, I should say. He wanted to forego rent, and seems to be in some, I don't want to say that, but like at a minimum has some financial issues. So I would expect that money is ultimately the biggest factor here, which is why I didn't think this was something that was particularly urgent to talk about. But in a world where he did hypothetically sign with the New York Knicks, this is a guy who could bring a lot to the table. Like I think 3-point volume was something the Knicks were really missing, and deep spacing is something the Knicks were really missing, right? Obviously, that was a quality that Dante DiVincenzo was about as good at as anyone this side of Steph Curry in the NBA. And the Knicks had no real replacement for that last year, right? Deuce McBride gave you a modicum of that in terms of movement shooting, in terms of space shooting, in terms of someone that just had a quick trigger. And adding Jordan Clarkson will help. Adding Gershon Yabusele will all help to get the New York Knicks 3-point rate up, which it absolutely has to go up for this team to, I think, hit their ceiling offensively and hit their ceiling as a team in turn. And Malik Beasley, with his ability or just the fact that teams will like honor him and guard him 25 plus feet away from the basket. He was not a fantastic shooter from 25 plus feet last year. He was something like 20th in the NBA, maybe a little bit higher than that in terms of threes made between 25 and 29 feet. He was actually tied with Jalen Brunson with 1.8 per game. He did not shoot it all that well from that range. He shot 29% from that range, which was the lowest mark of anyone in the top 30 or so, right? Franz Wagner was the only one who shot it with anything resembling similar volume, who shot it that poorly. So that's something to note. But Malik Beasley got up just like a ton of them a game. And just the fact that he is so respected as a shooter, I don't think teams are, at least in the regular season, distinguishing enough to not be guarding him from there. So the fact that he's a threat out there matters, even though he shot just 29%, taking 6 of them a game last year. There were some people who shot. Gary Trent Jr. shot 53% from 25 to 29 feet. There are some crazy shooters in the NBA. But I think the only scenario where he would sign with the Knicks is probably in a starting role. So what would those minutes look like? I'm just going to pull up my rotation that I put out after the Knicks finished their signings to give you guys just like a general gauge here of what I expected the baseline to be. And for those of you just listening, it was Brunson at 36 minutes, Clarkson at 12 at the point guard spot. Here, I'll just do it by total minutes because that's faster. Brunson playing 36 minutes, Deuce playing 26 minutes, Clarkson playing 18 minutes, OG playing 32, McHale playing 32, Hart playing 24, Cat playing 33, Gershon playing 18, Mitch playing 21. That should give you an idea that with the depth the Knicks have, it's going to be very, very difficult to find time for Malik Beasley because I already have someone at as good as Josh Hart, pretty limited at 24 minutes. I already have someone as good as Mitchell Robinson, pretty limited at 21 minutes. Guys as good as Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele, both playing under 20 minutes. So if you sign Malik Beasley and you make him a starter, you are really putting a strain on giving, earned minutes to guys across the board. And that could potentially lead to some chemistry issues. But in a world where the Knicks wanted to play a 10-man rotation, where they wanted to keep guys as fresh as humanly possible, here's what that would look like with Malik Beasley out there. So I think he would have to start. I think that's something you'd have to promise him. That would provoke some real concerns defensively, right? Like having, as much as I was not happy with Josh Hart on the defensive end of the floor last season, like there's no world where Malik Beasley is not a fairly significant downgrade, or at least a downgrade from what Josh Hart brings, certainly from a rebounding perspective. You were really small, and pending just a insane bounce back from Mikal Bridges, you were really vulnerable on the defensive end of the floor. That being said, a starting lineup of Brunson, Beasley, McHale, OG, Cat, like I could see that setting a record in terms of offensive rating for a group that plays, 500 plus possessions next year, 400 plus possessions. Like they could score 125 to 130 points per 100 possessions. That group should be completely unstoppable on the offensive end of the floor. So as far as actual minutes go, you'll see it on my screen if you're watching on YouTube. Brunson at 34 minutes. Deuce, I still had playing 22 because I think he's that valuable. Jordan Clarkson, I down to 14. Malik Beasley, I would have again at 22. Mikal Bridges, 30. Josh Hart at 22. OG Anunoby at 30. Cat at 32. Gershon at 16. Mitch at 18. So again, you were stretching guys really thin. You might have told Gershon Yabusele when you signed him, hey, we're going to make sure you get on the floor for 20 minutes. All of a sudden, that's at risk. You might have told Jordan Clarkson, you're going to play around 20 minutes a game. All of a sudden, he's down all the way to 14 a game. So, and look, like not everyone's going to be healthy. The Knicks had great injury luck last year. So it is always good to have the depth. I just think someone like Landry Shamet, it would be more realistic that he would take that kind of money and the kind of role the Knicks would ideally offer Malik Beasley. His shooting would be transformational. I don't think it ultimately happens. I think he ends up back in Detroit or another team that chooses to just way overpay for him because it seems like his number one priority, rightfully, if he's dealing with financial issues, is money. When we come back, we're going to say goodbye one final time. I know we really stretched it out, but I think it'll be worth it. I think you guys will enjoy the conversation to Alex Wolfe. We'll get into that in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Gametime. College football is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than the energy of tailgates and being in the stands with your fellow fans. The only downside, try to get tickets, endless queues, hidden fees, and prices that jump at checkout. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I recently had to buy tickets. I'm going to my friend's bachelor party in Austin. We are alumni of Arizona State University, and we are going to be checking out ASU against Baylor. I am incredibly excited for that one. And I pulled up Gametime in just a couple of taps. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. I ended up paying just $70 for really good seats for ASU Baylor. So I'm incredibly excited for that. They also offer zone deals where you just pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. It's incredibly easy. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Gametime today. Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, I guess time for us to say goodbye to each other on air. We've been delaying it, but I definitely should have wrote something before this. I didn't either,
bro. Don't worry.
Yeah, I always feel like really it's not good when people give like wedding speeches and stuff and they don't pre-prepare stuff. But I will say something I've thought about a lot over the years. And something I've talked to my friends a lot about over the years is like it is this crazy thing where you made like if people don't follow you on Twitter, like a little post about it and described it as like an arranged marriage. And it was that because we didn't know each other before. I was in the network working for Locked On Nets and Locked On Cardinals before that. And I really wanted it. And like you were nice enough and our boss David Locke was nice enough to be like, okay, I'm open to having a co-host, which I really appreciated because I thought James was going to be doing this for 30 years. And I was like, man, like while Knicks fans cover your ears, I enjoyed doing the Nets ones and I enjoyed those teams. Like I certainly do not have the level of passion with like a team that I've followed closely and like the team that kind of introduced me to my love of sports when I was like 8 years old, 20 plus years ago. And it's crazy to think that over like whatever the nearly 7 years, like there were very few people in my life I spent more time with than you, which is, and I'm sure it's mutual because you have your best friends in your life, right? You have your family, but you're usually not talking to them and behind the scenes, like we usually talk for like 15 minutes at least before every episode, sometimes 30 minutes on our really late nights. Sometimes to our regret when we're up at 2 a.m. Before we record episodes. And I've loved that over these years. I've treasured that. I feel like we found out we have like a shocking amount in common in terms of like mutual like comic book interests and movie and just like some pop culture stuff and sports in general. And like at times just venting about the job. And I think appreciating the fact that like we didn't have to do this on our own and we had someone else to share it with, someone else to talk about it with. And you've definitely become one of my really good friends over the years doing this. And I think like inevitably over time you're gonna have moments where like you're not seeing eye to eye and you're not getting along and like one person feels like they're carrying more of the load. But I'm like really proud of the fact I think like especially in the last 2 years and really this year we like very much like nailed down the right balance with all that stuff and we found like a really good flow where it just felt very positive all the time. And I really look forward to seeing you every night and catching up and hearing what was going on with you. And that's again like it is like a weird thing to have that thrust on you by work, but it's been just incredibly cool. And I really treasure you. I appreciate you. And I want to end with like, I think you're great at this. And I'm scared to see like what it's going to be like without you, because I think you are just someone that's like just incredibly easy to listen to and likable and affable and like without like having maybe correct me if I'm off on this, but like a ton of prior podcast experience coming in, like you came in and I think we're just a natural at this. And I like was in all of that and I appreciated that. And I think it made for a really good show with both of us. So it's been a great 7 years, man. And I'm sad it's ending, but I didn't talk about it much in this episode, but I've certainly felt a lot of what you felt. And like at times when I've thought of moving on, it's been for a lot of the same reasons. And I'm like very much happy you're in a place where you feel comfortable doing that. And I think it's going to be tough to your point. And there are going to be moments where you're like, all right, shoot, I like that muscle's going to twitch. You're like, I need to go on and talk about it. I need to go on and react. But I think overall, like you're going to be happy you moved on. And I think it's going to lead to some incredible stuff for you. And I think it's a very brave move, not in the sense that you like needed the money, but just in that, to your point, like it is kind of unique. And because you put so much work into it, it's something you said it perfectly. You don't want to give it up. You don't want to put it down. And yet to like just have the maturity to recognize like I'm at that point where I want to, I really appreciate it. I think it's cool. And I think reflects the point in life you're at, which I would love to get to. So I think that's awesome. But first, we wanted to ask if you guys could help us out. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. Put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks so much for helping us out. We also want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready to kick off with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if you bet wins, you'll get $300. Wow! In bonus bets to use across the app. They've had summer promos. The number has never been that high. And if you're anything like me, and you root for the New York Giants, and you've gone 5 years without decent quarterback play, you need something to make games a little bit more exciting on Sundays, to bring a little bit more energy. Maybe Jackson Dart will mitigate that. I don't know. We'll see if he starts. But while Russell Wilson is still the quarterback, it's quick and easy, and it's the best way to make games a little bit more fun. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, thank you so much for all that. I got
Yeah.
to start talking, or else I'm gonna
Yeah.
if I linger too long on what you just said, I'm gonna start getting too emotional. So I got to start talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. Yeah, I mean, I came into this with like nothing as far as podcast experience, other than, I mean, I'll shout him out again. I shouted him out at the end of the episode the other day, but like, um, I met James through Posting and Toasting when he was posting Locked On Knicks there. And because there was like sort of a standing agreement before, SB Nation being SB Nation was like, we can't have external things here anymore. And he wasn't allowed to make posts, but like we talked in like the Slack or whatever. And I just remember, I can still remember like the day that he was like, hey, if anyone from here wants to come on to Locked On Knicks, like let me know and you can come on. And I came on and we just had like, it just like clicked. Like, I mean, he was really good at running a show and like, really good at driving the conversation and stuff. And I feel like I tried to steal so much from him for a long time until I finally we found our own footing, but I found my own footing. I tried to be more like, I don't know, he was good at like kind of being over the top without being grating and like being funny naturally and coming up with cool concepts. And like, I don't know, I always tried to like do that and just think about things in the lens of like, would people enjoy listening to this? Would I enjoy listening to this? But yeah, when he asked me if I wanted to do that, I remember, I mean, I kind of talked about this the other day. I'll try not to go too long into like resume or whatever, because it's the lowest form of boring content. This isn't LinkedIn, but I was like, I graduated college in 2012 and like I couldn't find work in journalism, which is what I wanted to do. And I was questioning myself constantly on if I like made the right choice. Like if like I was a fool, or if I shouldn't have gone to school for what I did, if I shouldn't have invested all the time I did. I covered high school sports. I covered Carl Anthony Towns one time. That was like an early career highlight. So that was kind of cool, full circle this year. But just like, I don't know, I was at like a rough point in my life and career, and that didn't end while I was here. Because there was, I had it just so happened that I had a decent enough day job working for a newspaper, but as like a paginator at the time that I started this. But less than 6 months after I started doing this, they let me go due to just hedge fund terrible cuts. And I remember that was really hard for me. And I remember even like we were like just starting to get to know each other, and I had to be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just lost my job. Like,
Yeah.
I guess I'll have more time for the podcast now.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of sunk our teeth into it and, built it up. And, I don't know. So like, to close the James chapter, like I was just glad that like he gave me that affirmation of like, I think you could be good enough to do this. And like, I've had a lot of really good guests and good friends and whatever, but you're the one that I would want to like pass the torch to. And I didn't ask for it. I didn't know he was leaving. He came to me and said, I'd like you to do the show if you want it. And then from there, like you said, it was I always called it the arranged marriage. Like, I remember I called David Locke and he like had a conversation with me, and I had to explain to him like, yeah, this timing is kind of awkward. Like, I'm getting married on December 14th and you want me to start like December 7th, or whatever. And like, I was like, I kind of need that week to like plan my wedding and stuff
Yeah.
and like welcome family and whatever. Is it okay if I start like at the end of the month? And he's like, yeah, whatever. But first off, you helped out with that. But then secondly, I remember when like, I think it was actually James that told me, he was like, yeah, I talked to David and they're probably going to fix you up with a co-host. And I was like, get out of here, bro. Like, come on. Like, I just want to do it myself. Like, I want to be just like James. This is going to be sick. And then like literally within the first like 2 months, I was like, thank God I have a freaking co-host to do this with. Like, especially once we reached the point of the last few years where, frankly, with greater presence, greater resources on the Locked On end came more expectations of workload, what we would have to do, the different things that got worked in, switching to YouTube, then having a video to produce every day, as well as an audio version, as well as doing all these various different things that we had to do as part of the workflow. On top of the fact that like when you do it for so long, like sometimes you need a day off, and we were always there to like
Yeah.
pick each other up and be like, hey, can you just do a solo today? And like sometimes it was as simple as like, hey, I'm going out with some friends tonight. Can you do a solo episode? And sometimes it was like, hey, I'm having a full-on mental breakdown right now
Yeah.
about one thing or another. Like, can you step in for me on a moment's notice? And we always did that for each other. So I always appreciated that. As much as we, hawked BetterHelp and whatever, and still do to this day. And therapy is good and important. We were often each other's therapists too, and just helping each other through some tough times. And, like you said, we didn't always see eye to eye. And, there were plenty of times where I would like complain my wife's ear off, like, oh, I can't believe Gavin did this or that or whatever. I'm so angry. And then the next day,
Kevin Knox is going to be an all-star.
Yeah, this idiot, he ruined our credibility for life with this Kevin Knox take. I don't know what to do with it, but but then we would like get on, and then the undeniable like friendship and chemistry that we have would just come through, and everything would be fine. And it was just another good episode. I even, I would even like do solo episodes and just be like, especially this last year, just be like, I hate everything about doing a solo episode because I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the company. And I hated thinking that I would be self-important enough that like your thoughts wouldn't matter too or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's all really long-winded. I don't want to make this episode take 3 hours and piss off the Locked On bosses. So I'll wrap it up. But yeah, man, I love you. I'm glad you're my friend. This won't be the last time I'm here, but it's the last time it's like mine. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I'll be back for a guest spot at some point. I need to decompress a little and chill.
Take a few weeks, and we'll have
take
you
a few
down
weeks,
like,
whatever.
Three times a week from now on, and you'll have to edit once a month. So
there we go. It's perfect. But yeah, no, I won't be gone forever. But it's just weird. I already said it, so I won't belabor the point. But it's weird to like have something that's like your baby, and then kind of just push it along and be like, well, I guess I'm good. I'm going to trust this. I mean, at least I know I'm trusting it to you. At least I'm not giving it to a stranger.
Yeah.
But whoever ends up coming in to replace me, I hope they treat it with the amount of respect and whatever that I did. And part of that respect was ultimately saying, I think I should go because I just don't feel like I'm giving people the best version of myself on every episode. And that's what I always want to do. So,
yeah. And I think it's worth noting, like you didn't like let go of the rope throughout the season. Like even when it was hard, even when we were both struggling, and to your point, like with more listeners came more expectation, more people watching occasionally, like especially in the playoffs. Shout out to the Pistons fans and the Celtics fans and some of the Pacers fans. A lot of negativity, which we enjoyed. It's fun.
Actually, can I make that my last thing? I just want to say,
if screw Detroit, is that?
Well, there's that, and Boston forever, but. I guess just like to anyone that logs on, that goes on the Twitter, that goes on the YouTube comments or whatever, just like no matter how big or small the person is that you're watching and you feel the need to comment about something, just this is like so preschool BS, but like try to bring kindness with you into things and try to not say things to people that you wouldn't want said to yourself, because they're just, I don't know. I mean, the comments hurt. They do. The mean ones hurt. The good ones feel great, but the mean ones, especially if they have nothing to do with what you're actually talking about, like you're not saying, hey, you made a bad point. If you're just being like, you're a fucking idiot and I think you suck and you don't know what you're talking about, that person does not know what they're talking about, because this takes an incredible amount of work. It takes a lot of prep. We would have to sit here for hours on end prepping episodes, getting stats pulled, trying to make something compelling for people. And those days when the negative comments and stuff come in, it does sting. It stings a lot. And so just consider, before you drop that comment, before you hit the enter button, just think about like, oh yeah, that's a person on my screen or whatever, but that is ultimately a human being who's just sitting in his very normal townhouse with his very, normal existence, living with his wife, who's just a dude trying to get by, whatever, or, whatever the case may be, whether they're me or whether it's anyone else. Just my last message to any fans or whatever, just carry yourselves with civility, and, remember that the people that you watch are just people. That's it. Yeah. That's something that I always want to say, but I can only say now because it's my last episode. But it's just like, this stuff means something to us doing it.
Mhm.
And therefore, to hear people just basically not disagree with the stuff, but just disparage us in general, or I applaud you, because you were just kicking the Nets allegations like this year, of everybody being like, this guy's not even a fucking
I kind of
like,
enjoyed that, just because it wasn't really like an area of like I guess I know who I grew up rooting for, but I look at that as I present it as somewhat objective on this podcast. So that's cool. But we'll end on this. I love you too, dude. Love the last 7 years, and it goes without saying, but as long as I'm doing this open invite whenever you want to come on, of course, I'm going to be really excited to talk to you again. And I'm sure we'll probably have an hour pre-podcast catch up next time you come on. But
I'm sure
for the last time, this full-time host, he is the great Alex Wolfe. Again, be sure to check him out over at the Strickland. I'm Gavin Schall, and we'll talk to you very, very soon with so much more here on Locked On Knicks.